Coming in Hot is presented by Botano. The game starts now. Here are your hosts, Brent Wallace, Jason York, and Bobby Ryan.
Good morning, everybody. Brent Wallace alongside Jason York, Bobby Ryan, as we like to say, on assignment, Yorkie. And Yorkie, this is why people go, how do you keep doing a show in the summer? What's there going to be to talk about? Well,
oh boy,
there's always something. Yeah.
There's a few things out there, especially if you're an Ottawa Senators fan. Even if you're not a Senators fan, there's just so much going on with the franchise and the sale. And, man, we got lots to chew on.
We do. And so we're going to bring in Sylvain St-Laurent from Le Droit. It's funny, like that Emily Kaplan article, while there's not a lot in it other than the fact to say the Reynolds Group backed out, like, it's not a shot. I'm just saying it's not this whole documentary. It has, like when I looked at after a couple hours, had over 1 million likes or interactions. So one, people are interested in what's happening, and two, that there is a relevant market here for Ottawa. They're excited to see what's going to happen. So
Wally, when did I tell you that? 3 days ago that he was out?
We'll get to that. Anyway, let's hear before we bring on Sylvain, because he doesn't want to sit and probably listen to us read sponsor reads. Let's get through our sponsor reads before Sylvain joins the show. So, shall we? As always, this show brought to you by and presented by Botano. Or go to botano.ca, download the award-winning app. They are the EGR Gaming Company of the Year. The game starts now. Get into same-game parlays, all kinds of stuff, and including the odds, by the way, changing, it seems, daily on who the Stanley Cup favorite is, and we can get into that later in the show, but it is not anymore the Toronto Maple Leafs after what appears to be a short exit in the second round. We'll get to that later, too. But anyway, Botano, where the game starts now. York, BEI. I'll take, you get Renfrew. By the way, BEI. I know you guys like to say aggregate every once in a while, but I'll mix it up for you. Bonnechere Excavating Inc., heavy civil general contractors. They are still hiring. And by the way, they're busier now than they've ever been. And so if you were looking into the trades, you want to join a good company, BEI, well known for taking care of their employees, laborers, mechanics, concrete structure team. By the way, if you're looking to have your laneway or driveway, depending on which part of the country you grew up in, if you want to have that paved or redone, give them a shout, 613-432-1120. Go to BonnechereExcavating.com. All right, Yorkie, you're up.
Well, as always, our show is held together loosely from Renfrew Pro Tape, the original hockey tape. It's hand terrible. Check them out at renfrewpro.com. Helps with your puck control. It's what the pros use, and it's available at all major retailers. We don't have page 2 of this anymore. We scrapped that. There we go. It's patience. Coming in hot. Have patience. And hey, it's Friday today, so it's Free Tape Friday. Check them out on Instagram. Tag your teammates, and don't forget to share your story. Renfrew Pro. Thanks for your support.
All right. Without further ado, can we just welcome in our good friend Sylvain St-Laurent. Bonjour, mon ami.
Bonjour, les amis. Good morning, guys.
How are you, Sly?
You know what?
Well, that was rude.
I'm entertained. I was going to say it's been a short off season so far, but a very lively one and a busy one, and it's even going to get better.
Never a dull moment when it comes to the Ottawa Senators, we like to say around here. And you've gone through it all, too. By the way, do you know where you were on May 13th, 2017, which is tomorrow? This time tomorrow.
In 2017, is this the day of the 7th game of the semifinal for the Senators and Penguins?
This is game 1 of that series.
Game 1. I was in Pittsburgh.
You and I sitting in Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
Probably having some RC Cola that they had in the press box.
I was actually, you know what? I will surprise you with my mind's filled with little and meaningless details. They had assigned me seat number 65 on the PPG Paints Arena press box, and I do remember that.
Wow, which was called the Consol Energy Center at the time, if I'm not mistaken.
See, I don't remember that part, but I remember the fact that I was on seat number 65.
Hold on, back it up for a sec. Back it up. Did you say RC Cola in the press box?
Yeah.
That wasn't that long. What happened to
this
RC
day?
Cola?
They still have it now, or they? Yeah, well, the last time I was there would have been 2020, I think. It was still there. 2021.
Did they have Tab as well?
No, they were all out of Tab. But that's the only press box that has fishy crackers, which I thought they're fantastic, and popcorn, pretzels. Oh, they had cheese with their pretzels, or you could get that really bad American cheese stuff. But Pittsburgh is top notch. Yeah, press box is amazing. In New York, long time ago when the Islanders, I think when Gar Snow was GM, maybe Mike Milbury, they made you pay for the pop in the press box. They had a lock on the door that you had to.
Oh my goodness!
Anyway, it was like $1. Okay, let's move on, shall we? It was mindless. We could talk about this all day long. So the news came out yesterday by Emily Kaplan from ESPN, who said the Ryan Reynolds Group is out of the bidding. Gentlemen, it's a shocker, except Yorkie, you told me the day before that perhaps there was something was going.
I heard
you
something.
said something wasn't right. Yeah. So what do you know?
I just heard with this. Listen, this process with the sale of the team right now, it's very unorthodox the way it's going on. Basically, a lot of blind bidding. People don't really you're not really sure what other teams are bidding. So it's a very unique situation. And what I heard is just the Reynolds Group. Maybe they just got a little bit, not sure if fed up is the right term, but I think they wanted exclusivity with the deal. And who knows if he's going to come back in or not. At this point, it doesn't look like it, but we'll see. You got Kimmel out there, you got Andlauer. He can still join another team. You never know until it's finally done. But this is a very unique situation with buying a sports franchise, which is now reportedly going for $1 billion. So. A lot at stake. You never know what's going on for sure. So until it's finally over, I'll believe it when I see it if he's officially out.
Sleepy, what do you think? What do you make of this? Because you're down at the rink every day, if you will. You're around it. What do you think the reaction is?
You mean at the rink inside? I mean, I don't profess to know what's going on right now, so late in this process. But the one thing I will agree with Yorkie and say that it's a very unique situation, and because it has become a very public situation, and I think that it's become that way because of the fact that Ryan Reynolds has been involved, and he's been so agile in pushing the right buttons at the right place, in making some of his, some components of his bid public, and that's what's making it so unique, so special. Right now, the one reaction we know is the one among the fan base, the younger part of the fan base, the one that's vocal online. You felt like there was a huge shock last night. There was almost like a disappointment, a letdown, because everybody basically had fell in love with the idea of a Hollywood star being the owner of the hockey team. And to me, that's what makes it unique and different than any other sale of any other pro sports franchise right now.
Yeah.
This sale, Yorkie, this sale has become all about which celebrity do you have in your bid. And it's not, and so everybody, with all due respect, everybody's kind of forgot what the most important thing here is to have a stable owner who wants to win a Stanley Cup, or they want to win a Stanley Cup as in the group, not necessarily one particular person. There's nobody specifically from Ottawa that's going to be a majority owner, it appears right now, based on the groups that we've heard. It's all a real estate play at the moment. And so we get caught up in the celebrity part, but maybe Ryan Reynolds' group isn't necessarily the best group for this team to be successful on the ice. This isn't a shot. I'm not trying to backpedal my way around anything. I'm just trying to point out that maybe the Andlauer group, maybe the Kimmel group, both who have NHL ties, who have been minority owners, who still are, with Andlauer, a minority owner in Montreal, and the Kimmel's group used to be a minority owner with Pittsburgh. They have the hockey background per se for that group. So could this, like, it's a business deal, right? I think we're taking this a lot more personally than perhaps we should be.
Go ahead, Sly.
Well, I mean, the first thing you said, it has become about who has the biggest celebrity. I mean, who would have thought Ottawa, of all markets in North America, would be about the sex appeal and the glitter and the Hollywood appeal? I mean, to me, that's what makes it unique. But I will agree with you, though, on that part, Wally. I mean, and I'm not trying to be the guy who says that, Ottawa doesn't need Ryan Reynolds. It would have been amazing, and it would still be if he actually, brought in his unique talents to this marketplace. But I agree with you. After what we've been through for the last, I'm going to say 6 or 7 years, maybe to have a solid owner that's committed to winning, that has the necessary resources, that's willing to invest those resources in the right people, whether it's on the business side or on the hockey operations side, and then hires those people and lets them do their job and takes a back seat, that might not be the worst scenario either.
I agree.
So having played here for 5 years, back when the team first started to get going, when we first made the playoffs, and then covering the team through media all the way to the Stanley Cup finals versus Anaheim, and then seeing what goes on. We all know what goes on in this town. You watch the Red Blacks when they won the Grey Cup. It was sold out stadiums. They stopped winning. People stopped coming. This is still a hockey town. This is a hockey town. But one thing I know, and I know you guys will agree with me, and people can disagree or not, you need to win in this town. You do. And now with the way this team is trending, they should be a team, I think, and I've said this for the last 6 months, that Ottawa should be able to challenge for a Stanley Cup within 2 to 3 years with the core they have. I'm sure Reynolds Group will come in and if they were the ones to get it, would do a great job. All these groups that are bidding have deep pockets. So what you need in the NHL to win now, you need deep pockets. But is it the end of the world if he's going to be out? It's not the end of the world, because this is what a sports franchise is all about. It's about winning. So whoever's going to come in, if that team is committed to winning, which I think all these groups would be, that is best for the city, because, man, you go into another era of losing hockey, it's not going to be good for a hockey team here. That's the way Ottawa sports fans are. They support teams that win. So that has to get done. I think that will get done. But hey, I'll throw a name. I know. Let's say Michael Andlauer, for example. If he comes in and he becomes the guy that gets the team, I will tell you, all this guy wants to do is win the Stanley Cup. I know that for a fact. That's exciting, and I'm sure the other groups are the same. But that's, at the end of the day, you can have all the stuff you want on social media. You could have interesting stories and this and that. But if you don't win, that's what it's all about. So I think that will eventually, whoever buys it, at the end of the day, you can't lose sight that is the most important thing with owning the Ottawa Senators.
Correct. The chat is pretty busy right now. I'm trying to monitor it, but there's a lot of topics. So I'll say that we're trying to get to discussing Reynolds coming back in, Reynolds joining another group, downtown arena. And one of the things we should get to Reynolds, but I just want to make a point. And Yorkie, you know this, and even Sly, you've been around enough GM or general Board of Governors meetings to know you don't talk about this deal. This is the first time I've ever heard of a sale of a franchise being this public. And you talked to it, right, yeah. Sleepy? You don't. So Jim Balsillie from, remember the Blackberry, who spoke vocally about it. They wanted nothing to do with them by the end. You haven't heard anything necessarily from the Kimmel Group until the last little bit. You haven't heard Andlauer at all, like deathly quiet. And that's because he understands the process. They both do. So don't be surprised to hear them emerge as the front runner. I understand that the publicity part, and hey, one thing's for sure, everybody and anybody wants Ryan Reynolds to be a part of the Ottawa Senators. I don't think there's one person out there that I know of who's ever said, no, this can't happen. So if there's a way, hopefully we can massage that to become a reality that he moves on with another group. And I'll get to that. There's some more of that stuff later, Yorkie, as you know, with Andlauer. But that's just one point I wanted to bring up, is the people at the back of the room who are really quiet, start to emerge, right, Sly?
Yeah, no, for sure. And the fact that Michael Andlauer knows all the governors because of his involvement with the Montreal Canadiens also is we can't understate how important that is to already be part of the club and to know people, because when the decision gets to be made, like the NHL likes to reward its own people. And the other thing I'm going to say for Michael Andlauer, being from Quebec, I know a lot of people in the Montreal area where Michael Andlauer has been doing some business for years. And the other thing that he has going for him is a strong reputation as a business person who is very in touch with his employees, whether they are at the top of the pyramid or at the bottom. He's known to have a lot of respect for his people. And when you lead an operation in a smaller town like Ottawa, and you know, everybody knows somebody that works with the Senators from far or close, that's really important, and that's what would make him a quality owner for the Senators, I think, if he should win the bid.
Well, it's really important when you look at the history of the NHL and some of the owners. You don't have to go back that far. You go back to Bruce McNall. You go back to what happened with the New York Islanders. You go back to the Tampa Bay situation. The last thing the NHL wants, especially with today's day and age of social media, how quickly negative information gets passed around, it is very important that that this group comes in. And hey, I don't know a lot of the other groups, but you look at the Kimmel group, you look at the Andlauer group, they already have relationships with the NHL, and that is a lot more important than people think, because you having a seat at the table, it's much better to do business with somebody you trust, you know how they act. So I look at those two groups, and man, you'd have to think, and this is just my opinion, that they would be the two front runners now.
There's a couple other things. The NCC, we'll get to that in a sec. Here's the question everybody seems to really want to know, and I probably should have brought it up earlier. Okay, I'll start with you, Yorkie. Does Ryan Reynolds find a way back into this bidding process?
Oh, boy. I don't know the answer to that, Wally. From everything I've been led to believe, a little bit of frustration came out with the process, and he's out. Does he come back in? Sure, there's a chance. Not knowing him personally, not knowing his personality, I'm going to put it at 50-50. It's 50-50 if he's back in, with me having absolutely no inkling either way. So that's the best I got on that one. 50-50. Never say never. But as of right now, he's out, but we'll see. Terrible answer.
Sleepy?
I think it's getting very late in the game for I mean, stuff can happen. I'm like Yorkie. I'm not a specialist in those questions. But, I mean, if we're looking at a May 15 deadline to submit bids, I mean, you would think that the other groups right now, the other serious groups, probably get their ducks in a row right now. And I don't know how easy it would be to just add a player, let alone the guy who is so prominent and likes to take center stage so much. So Yorkie says 50-50. Right now, not being a business insider or anything, I would go lower than that.
So, by the way, Ian Mendez, Athletic, obviously, as we know, wrote an article this morning. He's in Wrexham right now. So he traveled over, as we all saw. So he flew over. We talk all the time. So he told me he's going over to see Tim Stützle. He was going to cover the World Championships, but the rosters aren't exactly top notch, shall we say? So before coming home, he took a quick little exit to Wrexham, and then I was about to tell him, I'm like, Ian, I think there's a problem with the bid. He was there. So he's still, anyway, he wrote an article today. I don't know what he's going to get in Wrexham, but we'll find out. On the Ryan Reynolds part, at the very last paragraph of what he says, one source said he was holding out hope that Reynolds would consider joining forces with another group, but it would likely take some time for him to recover from the disappointment of not securing this bid on his own. Two things. I wished Ryan Reynolds would have not joined a bid, much like Alfie. Alfie's waiting to find out who gets it, and then he'll join probably that group. I wish Reynolds would have just stayed back and goes, I will discuss with somebody. And I know it's business and it's $1 billion, and perhaps that's just a pipe dream. But he did meet with the Andlauer group, if I'm not mistaken, Yorkie. So maybe there's some hope there.
I would think so. It's like any business transaction. It gets heated. There's a decision made, and like I said, that's why I said you never say never, because when this was first started being discussed about Ryan Reynolds, I think the common theme out there was, yeah, he's with Remington, but maybe whoever gets the team, he hops on onto that bus with that group. That was always out there. So that's why I say nothing's over until it's over. And I still think it's 50-50 because there's still a ways to go here in the process. It's been dragged out this long. And he's put a lot of time and effort into this, a lot of time and effort. So that's why I say never say never. And until it's done, I'll continue to say firmly on the fence, 50-50.
I just think that there's still time for him to join if that's ultimately what he wants. But here's one thing we know every time this happens, Gary Bettman will not be bullied whatsoever. And we can all say that this is the Gladiato group or whatever it's called, and the board of the Sens who are doing this. This comes with a heavy hand from Gary Bettman. And I don't have an issue with Gary. He does exactly what the owners want him to do. Let's not forget that. And I think he's like, I can't allow the Remington group to have exclusivity for 30 days and then have the other guys like Andlauer and like Kimmel who know this process to sit there and twiddle their thumbs. One thing I do think is that this franchise will go for less than what was offered by the Remington group now.
Yeah, the number, the figure that the Remington group brought forward was might have been I'm not going to say unreasonable to begin with.
Aggressive.
Thought that, exactly. Well, yeah, that's a better word for it. But I mean, this remains Ottawa. Like, I agree with Yorkie. It's a hockey market. It's certainly a market that has shown in the past that it deserves to be part of the NHL. But it's still a very small market, a Canadian market in which there's very little to corporate support. So the 1 billion figure might have been a bit exaggerated or aggressive, like you said.
Yeah. So, Yorkie, you are very good at calming the waters. I want you to tell people that everything is going to be okay.
Well, at the end of the day, think about it this way. After the years of Eugene Melnyk as the owner, the uncertainty of the franchise, and go back and think about that. There were signs up in this city to get the owner out. Now here we are, fast forward to 2023. We've got a handful of billionaires bidding on the Ottawa Senators. So this franchise is going to be owned by a very good group. Whoever that group is going to be remains to be seen. But there are greener pastures ahead for this franchise. If you want to think of good things, yes, it's taken a long time, but it's like anything. Anything that's good, anything that's worthwhile takes a while to come into place. This will get solved this summer at some point, and whoever owns this team, man, just look at the product on the ice, and then you add in deep pockets, which you need to win. At the end of the day, like I said earlier, that's what people want in this city. They want a winner. They want a team that's going to win the Stanley Cup. Whoever buys this team, I'll guarantee you, is going to have the pockets to make sure that that dream of winning a cup is that much closer. So, hey, listen. This good times ahead for this franchise. And it's just the frustrating part is everyone's waiting. But hey, like I said, good things take a while to come to fruition.
Sly,
I'm going to repeat.
I'm going to repeat myself. Friday.
Yeah, I'm going to repeat myself. What this team ultimately needs. I mean, of course, Ryan Reynolds brings something unique to the table, but this team needs an owner that has the resources to make things happen. And first and foremost, that will hire the right people to run the team, both off the ice and on the ice. We'll put enough money into hiring the right people, and then we'll trust them enough to let them do their job. This is what this market needs. And if you get the right people in to lead the team, then just the result on the ice will take care of themselves. Like Yorkie said, this group right now is too talented to miss.
And the other thing I'll add, guys, is I do think it's important that local ownership is involved. Obviously, I got ties to that, but it sure looks like there's a group in place that's going to come in with whoever buys the team. And to me, that's huge in a city like Ottawa. We're still a small town. But there's a lot of prominent people in this city, and if they're involved with this franchise, I think that's vitally important to the team, because they know the pulse of the city, and they know what makes people tick, and that's going to help. That's going to help with really increasing the brand and getting it back to where it used to be, and even better to what it used to be. I'm telling you, it's going to be so exciting what happens here in the next couple of years.
Well, now you're 30 years in the making. Like,
exactly.
You got 30 years, you have the luxury. It can be better because of one thing too. I mean, I just want to bring back the Alfie factor in this situation. You can't, mix up Alfie with Ryan Reynolds, where Daniel Alfredsson isn't necessarily looking for a stake in ownership. He just wants to be back in the group, in the conversation. He wants a job in the hockey operations. To me, you have a whole bunch of alumni like you, Yorkie, like Daniel Alfredsson, like a whole bunch. We can name a whole bunch of players who know what it's like to be part of a winner in this town, that can help building this team back up.
Slide to your point, Wally, just to finish up on that thought. At the end of the day, there's a lot of people in the city, and you mentioned Alfie, talk about myself and other people, that just want to win. People want to win here, that have skin in the game, that were part of the team. And a lot of people in the local ownership group were fans of the team, and they care about the city, and that's why they want to be involved. So I'm with you, Sly, that you get this many people wanting to win for the right reasons for the city of Ottawa, to make it a better place. Man, that's a unique and a very promising situation.
Yorkie, how much money have you put into the ownership group? Did you empty the wallet? How much?
40 mil about. Have you seen my career earnings? It's right out there on
you left a lot at the bar in Adirondack, I'm sure. I'm
here for my knowledge, Wally. It's worth more than that.
Okay, speaking of knowledge, are you able to discuss who's in the local ownership group?
No, not able to do that. But
are you able to tell us? It's so people are wondering if they haven't already heard. Jeff York is Jason's brother. Can you tell us how, like, Jeff as a owner would be like? What's he want to do with the Ottawa Senators? Does that make sense?
I think that would be premature to talk about right now, Wally. Before, okay. Like I said, we just talked about, if you look at what's going on in this process right now with the people that have remained silent and quiet, and just it's almost like the scene from Seinfeld, when you go up to get your soup, you wait in line, you wait your turn, and you follow the process. So all I can say is I just believe strongly in the city, and when you get people involved that care and are in it for the right reasons, that's something that's really going to help a franchise.
Have you been promised a role as Spartacat?
I love that role, by the way. You never have to. Hey, the best thing with being Spartacat is you never talk. You just sit there.
You never talk.
Nobody can take sound bites from 10 seconds and misconstrue what you say, because you never say anything.
So good. I used to know one of the NHL mascots. I've known a couple, but one of them we've sat and talked on a plane before, and they all hated Ace from the LA Kings. They all thought he was an ass. So there is animosity between mascots. Who knew? So Sleepy, how do we feel about how this bidding process is going? For me, it's taken way too long. And that's why stuff continues to get leaked out, if you will. Like, I don't remember hearing anything about the Penguins getting sold that much, or even Nashville, the last two, really. And if I don't want people to get hung up on the fact that Ryan Reynolds could make a documentary about, like he did for Wrexham. I think a lot of people can make a documentary. So I want the Ottawa fans to get the best deal and the best owner possible. So I don't necessarily think that we need to, and I said this before, I want Ryan Reynolds as part of the group. I just don't think that this is the worst thing that could possibly have happened.
Well, right now, to me, my biggest concern right now, as we are moving, later in May and June is creeping at its head. That we're getting into the phase of the off season where this important decisions need to be made looking ahead to the 2023-24 season of the NHL. And on the ice, like we're hockey fans first and foremost, all of us. On the ice right now, this team needs to make sure to correct some glaring mistakes, needs to do better than last year to progress. Now, we wouldn't want the sale, the hold up on the sale to be at the detriment of important hockey decisions that could be made for next season, like who's going to lead this team, which players are going to come in. Next season is too important. This team needs to make the playoffs next year. It needs to show progress for the fans, if anything. So to me, that's my biggest concern. As it is being held up, as it's delayed, to me, it's starting to be a concern.
The nice thing is there's most of the important pieces are in place and signed long term. Yep. Like Tkachuk signed, Norris is signed, Batherson signed. The big decision, the big looming decision is what's going to happen with DeBrincat. That's the one, and that's a big decision that's going to probably have to take place at the draft, and then extending Sanderson at some point. The goalie situation as well. So there are some big decisions, and to me, like that's first and foremost what's most important for the Ottawa Senators, because like I said earlier, this team is getting very close. With the right tweaks, the right little moves, you could set yourself up to, like I said, to potentially contend for the Stanley Cup in 2 years. I think they're that close. And look, guys, we're watching it firsthand in the playoffs this year. Look at the Florida Panthers. Look at the Seattle Kraken. This could be the Ottawa Senators in a couple years with a couple really astute moves. So that's yes, I agree. That's the one scary part. The longer this goes on, the uncertainty, these things are going to have to be addressed, and I think at the draft.
You need to make a decision on coaching as well pretty soon. I mean, to me, that's another very important one. Right now, DJ Smith has a bit of a time left on his contract. If the team decides that he's the right person to keep on leading this group, then fine, they just say it, announce it. But if new ownership has another coach in mind, then just, and you can't hire that said coach because he's free for a short period of time and he gets grabbed by another team because the sale isn't completed, then that's a missed opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely.
I completely agree, Sly. The draft is huge. Even though Ottawa doesn't have many picks, that's where everything gets handled for a lot of it. So I do agree that time is running out. But something that's never gets talked about very much, they always say, let's bring in another GM or let's move on from Dorion. There's a couple scenarios that could play out. The new owner comes in, replaces Dorion, replaces Dorion and Smith, or replaces just Smith. I think that whoever it is at this late in the game, that Dorion stays for one more year. Same with Smith. But it's interesting that Pierre Dorion has yet to say anything about coming back and supporting DJ Smith. I don't know if that's just because he has a contract and they're like, well, he has a contract. What do I need to say? But he did say at the press conference that he's going to take some time and evaluate everything, right? No one discusses Ryan Bowness as potential GM of sliding into that role, and or Trent Mann for that matter. What's wrong with just moving Ryan Bowness into that role? He would know the organization. He would know what's plan, all that stuff. Can we not, how come he just never gets talked about? Sleepy?
No, I think he's a very quality. He's a young hockey mind. He's a very sharp guy. I think there's merit to this candidacy. The one thing that I keep saying when we discuss about the general manager of the Ottawa Senators, there hasn't been a true change in 16 years. If you think about this, Brian Murray was appointed in 2007. When he was ready to move on because of his health issues, he basically handed the team to his right-hand man. So to me, it's 16 years of the same philosophy, same idea. If you just keep handing the job down, then sometimes there's something that can be said about just bringing a new, fresh look, outside look to an organization, and that's right now. I'm not saying Ryan Bowness isn't the right candidate for this job. I'm just saying that maybe sometimes just moving on and bringing fresh people might be a good thing.
The only reason I bring up Ryan Bowness is just because I think you could come in and just replace Dorion if you wanted to change right away, and then you could leave him as interim until you decided what you wanted to do. I think that's, by the way, Censored Choice would say Jason York as GM in the chat. So You do have a fan, Yorkie.
If you look logically with the way the Ottawa Senators are run, probably the first move that gets done when new ownership comes in is you hire somebody to oversee the hockey department. Like you bring in a guy in a president role. And that's something when you go back to the Brian Murray days, Brian was the GM, but he was actually the president too. Like he was the president without really having the title. And to me, that's what's missing with the Ottawa Senators. And any ownership group's probably going to anoint somebody to come in, and then that person will evaluate what they see. They'll come in and say, we're going to do this. This guy will be here. This guy will be there. And whatever those decisions will be. But to me, that's something that the Ottawa Senators would, I think, need to have in place because it's a set of eyes that can come in and make the proper decisions that need to be made.
So Yorkie, Sly, we're going to play this game I like to play because it gets the fans wound up. Would you or would you not sign Alex DeBrincat to an extension?
I, at this juncture, would not.
Oh, Sly, they're going to be coming for you.
You know what? It's a lot of money on a long-term contract, and he's a good player. Now, I'm going to ask you this question, guys. Can the Senators win next year with Josh Norris in and Alex DeBrincat out?
Yes.
See, right now, are you going to commit, that huge chunk of money on a long-term contract on a player that probably you could get by without him? Or are you going to save that money for a position where you might need bigger help, like goaltending?
Yeah.
I mean, to me, that's my position right now. If you still have $20 million under the cap, and that wouldn't be an issue. But at this moment, every buck you spend has to be very well spent.
If you're paying attention to the playoffs right now, and you're seeing what has success in the National Hockey League, it's teams that have really good third lines that can play against any line on any other team, that play heavy, that play physical, that go to the dirty areas. Watch the goals that are being scored in the NHL playoffs. They're not fancy goals scored outside of the dots. And what I mean by the dots are the dots that go up and down the ice. Guys that play on the outside of the dots, it's very tough to have success in the playoffs. During the regular season, you can have success outside the dots. When I watch Alex DeBrincat play, I think he's a tremendous player, but the majority of his success comes from outside the dots. So people will say, well, sure, in the playoffs it will translate. I think for sure in the first round, because in the first round there's a ton of penalties, there's a ton of power plays, and that's where he's most valuable. He is an incredible player on the power play. He is an incredible player on shootouts, and he's an incredible player in 3-on-3 hockey. Two of those three things don't exist in the playoffs: 3-on-3 hockey and shootouts. So then you're going to be paying a guy $9 million to basically be fantastic on the power play. And also, too, think about, why did the Ottawa Senators acquire Alex DeBrincat? Because he was a 40-goal scorer, and they didn't really have that on their team. When you look now what exists on the current roster of the Ottawa Senators, Timmy Stützle is going to be a 40-goal scorer. Brady Tkachuk had 35-plus goals. Josh Norris had 35 goals. Drake Batherson was over 20 goals. Pinto was over 20 goals. Goal scoring is not a problem for the Ottawa Senators. What they need is to increase their depth and to fill that roster in with guys that can play hard playoff hockey and play inside the dots. And that's not a slam against DeBrincat, because I think on a variety of different teams, he can be a top-line player. But they're on Ottawa Senators, he's their second-line left winger. Brady Tkachuk is always going to be your first-line left winger. So why on earth would you pay someone $9 million to be your second-line left winger? It doesn't make any sense.
I just like asking the question. It's fun. It should be like a little game.
It's you just gotta look at Wally. You just gotta look at slotting.
I know
it doesn't work.
I understand.
It doesn't work.
But I think people get confused with his talent level and what he can do on the ice as to where he fits on the roster. So if we can all agree he is an extremely talented hockey player who's fun to watch and does fun things on the ice. I don't necessarily think he fits into the mold of building a Stanley Cup contender with the Ottawa Senators. That's all I think is what's being
There's
said.
your point with the Ottawa Senators, because I think he does fit into the mold with some other teams, because you need players like that can score. But the Senators, the way they've come so quickly with the guys, nobody saw Stützle scoring this many goals this year. And that's the thing. How many guys on your team can you have that you can say, well, he's a 40-goal scorer, and he's a 40-goal scorer, and he's a 40-goal scorer? To be a 40-goal scorer, you have to get every single offensive zone start. You have to play 1:30 of every single power play. You've got to be on the end. Like, there's so many things that come into play, and those opportunities just aren't going to be there, I think, for DeBrincat to be a 40-goal scorer. Not enough ice.
But the other thing, too, to go along with that is that in order for the forwards to score lots of goals, they need to have the puck. In order for them to have the puck, the defenseman needs to provide them the puck. And you don't think right now, next season, the offense will not be boosted by having a full Jakob Chychrun full-time and Jake Sanderson being 1 year older? So I'm thinking right now, so to me, like, if Tim Stützle scored 40 goals this year, he might move up to 50 in the near future, only because of that. So to me, that's right now. And it's not a knock on Alex DeBrincat. Like you said, some teams are going to need Alex DeBrincat just to get to the playoffs. I could be wrong. We could all be wrong right now and look like fools in a year from now. But I think like you guys, the Sens don't need him right now to get into the playoffs.
Right. Okay, there's a couple of things in the chat, Yorkie, and I'll ask you, since you're the de facto general manager at the moment. People want to know if you'd sign Milan Lucic to a 1-year deal.
Not at this point in the game. He doesn't fit into what the Ottawa Senators do. You watch again. To me, I look at where the Senators, if they want to be successful in the playoffs, what's the first thing you notice if you watch the games last night? Speed, pace. You got to be able to play the game fast right now. And hey, Lucic's had an incredible career, outstanding player. I just think the pace of the game right now, he wouldn't be on my radar.
What about you, Sly? Would you have Milan Lucic on your team? Yeah. Okay.
Same thing. I think right now he's just a little too old and too slow for the game right
now. Have you looked at goaltending? I'll let you go, you sleepy. I told you it wouldn't be this long. Would you look at goaltending and consider Connor Hellebuyck to be the answer to your prayers?
This contract situation right now is a bit of a, it's difficult. Would he like to be part of this team going forward? I don't know. Could you work maybe a trade in which you get dollar in, dollar out? I'm not sure. But he seems to be enough of a gamer to me. Well, that's the thing, right? Can you move, with 2 or 3 different teams involved? No, we're just playing fantasy general manager here. But
that's what we do.
I think it's interesting. Yeah.
I don't. It's the goaltending. The goaltending is a crapshoot. Look at the team still in the playoffs right now. Toronto's playing their third string goaltender. Everybody thought Bobrovsky was done. They didn't even start him to start the playoffs. You look at Schmid, you look at the Edmonton situation, Skinner's a rookie. Like, it's crazy. Vegas. Like, really the only goaltender that's doing what he's supposed to do right now is Ottinger, because he had an outstanding year. But besides that, man, that has to be the toughest thing about being a general manager is good luck forecasting who's going to be your goaltender, because it never works out. Freddie Anderson, the Leafs thought he was too soft and this guy couldn't get it done. Now he's off to the Final Four. Yeah. Like, it's crazy.
Yeah. And Freddie struggled in Toronto with the pressure. I think even he admits it. So he had great numbers in Toronto, just he couldn't win in the playoffs. It is interesting to watch. It seems to me like there is, back in, I'll say our days, or the 90s, if you will, you knew who the starting goaltenders were. Like, you knew the top 30 guys or whatever. I don't know that we know anymore, other than maybe 10 guys who are bona fide number one starters. Am I wrong? It just seems like you never know who's going to be in net. I don't know if that's a positive or a negative at this point.
And it's crazy because now every goalie basically plays the same way. They all follow the same recipe. They all go to the same school, and you don't know who's going to come on top on a yearly basis.
Yeah. The biggest difference I noticed is there's so many power plays now. And before in the playoffs, you used to basically have to behead somebody to get a penalty. Now you're seeing, especially the first round, there was a lot of, really? That's a penalty? And then the power plays are so good now. You look at Edmonton's power play, like these guys, when they get opportunities on goaltenders, they're not missing. And you got to be superhuman to make some of the saves out there. So it's, I don't, Ottinger is the only one that comes to mind for me right now as far as guys that are like, basically, you know, but besides, like I said, you just don't know.
The Bob father.
Yeah. People thought he was done. Now he looks like he looks like Vezina Bob again.
I know. All right, Sleepy, we're going to let you go, but I appreciate you stopping by. Enjoy your stuff when I Google Translate it. And so we will be chatting with you soon, my friend.
Anytime, guys. Always a pleasure.
See you, Sly.
Sylvain St-Laurent from Loudois, one of the good people, and travel the world with him and enjoy him immensely. Just an all-around good person. So, Yorkie, as I brought up at the beginning of the show, our show presented by Betano, go to betano.ca, is the Stanley Cup favorites have changed. So I don't know if I told you. Who do you it's too late now. Who do you think is the Stanley Cup favorite? And it's Carolina at the moment.
Wow. I would agree with that. The way they're playing right now. No, wait, they're the first team through, so that's pretty safe bet, for sure. They're going to have, because the other series aren't decided yet. It all appears, if you look at it the way that Dallas is playing now, that they've taken that series over. Last night, they dominated that game. Seattle seems to be running out of steam. Looks like Toronto's very difficult to win the next 3 in a row. But yeah, the thing I love about Carolina is their defense. Their defense, that decor doesn't get talked about enough. Like, you watch Jakob Slavin play. He is so reliable. He's big, he's long, he's offensive, he's defensive. You got Brady Shea, you got Pesci back there. And hey, how about Brent Burns? Brent Burns looks like
you've left out Brent Burns.
Brent Burns. They picked up Gostisbehere from Arizona. He's good in your bottom pairing. They goaltending, defense, that's what wins you Stanley Cup. That's what wins you cups. And they're doing it with some pretty key injuries. Shestnikov's out of the lineup. Teravainen's been out for a while. Rod Brindamore's got those guys cooking right now.
Well, so that's my. We all complained about or mentioned that if Josh Norris wasn't hurt and we would have been a playoff team. The Carolina Hurricanes are without major pieces of their forward group, if you will, and they're still finding a way to win hockey games in the postseason. So if you build your team right, I think that you don't like one injury isn't going to take you down, and that was what I find with Carolina. Like they just play a very good hockey game, which sounds nonsensical, but it's just exactly that.
They're extremely well coached, and don't forget, like, there's some players on that team that have been chasing it for a while. Like Brent Burns is a guy that's been in the league he's over 1,000 games. He still hasn't won yet. Like he's a guy that's very motivated right now. You look at their Slavin as well. Like they're at a different. That's a little bit of an unfair comparison, I think, if you look at how the rosters are constructed, because that's an older roster. They've had guys like, you look at Aho, he's an experienced player. You look at Stahl, like they've got. The difference is the older players on that roster compared to the older players that are on the Ottawa Senators roster. Those older players on the Senators roster are guys that are bottom players and guys that are like on the back nine of their career, where Burns is, he's older, but he's definitely not a guy that's in your bottom pair in D. And that's the difference. You watch these teams in the NHL, they're older guys. Take Toronto, for example, like Ryan O'Reilly. Like if you threw Claude Giroux in the playoffs right now, he'd be doing the same thing these guys are doing, because they understand playoff hockey. They know what it takes. They've had ups and downs in the past, and that's how you learn. That's why it's so hard to win the Stanley Cup, because very few teams do it on the first, second, and third cracks. It takes a while, and the only way to do it is you kind of learn through failure.
Very good point. But okay, you say that, and then I go back to the early 2000s with the Senators, who had these fantastic teams. How much learning did you need to do? Like, they lost 4 straight times to the Leafs. Like, at some point, did they not have to get over the hump? And I think in 2005, they would have got that done had Hasek not gotten hurt. Or I guess that's 2004.
I would agree with that. That team was ready to win. Hey, they went right to the finals against Anaheim. And back then, you look at what Giroux was doing. Like, goaltending, it seemed to me goaltending back then, you made the point earlier, Wally, where you knew there were a certain amount of goaltenders in the league that if you had one of those guys, it was almost like a mental block on the other teams. Like, those guys could win you a series. Those guys were always the guys in the Conn Smythe conversation. Yeah. Ottawa at the time, it was Ray Emery was their goaltender because of the injury, and Ray played extraordinarily well. Like, I thought he was awesome during the playoffs, but he wasn't Giroux, and he just wasn't there at that point. And it's kind of changed now in the NHL where it's younger. You don't really need that de facto goaltender anymore. But hey, don't forget too, Ottawa, where they went after that with how they handled their business, with the way ownership handled things, they were in a no-win situation. So to say Ottawa's been 30 years without really winning a cup, you got to take away about 6 or 7 of those years and say, well, I don't think they are 100% all in because there was circumstances dictating that you were, you're getting rid of a lot of guys like Stone, like Pagnotta, and you go like, it's just, you're in a no-win situation.
I totally agree. Although the team that went to the Eastern Final in 2017 was never supposed to be anywhere near that. Right?
Yes. But that's what happens sometimes. Sometimes you get a team that catches lightning in a bottle. You come together, you play for each other. You're doing what Florida's doing right now, and then who knows how long Florida is going to be able to go on this run for. But that's the great thing about playoff hockey. You get these stories when a team comes together. But we'll see. There's still a lot of racetrack to go for the Florida Panthers.
Yes, but okay? So have you been on a team down 3-0 or 3-1?
Oh yeah, we didn't come back. I was on the Senators team that got swept by the Leafs.
Right. So here's what I'm asking you. You're in the room and you see the insurmountable task ahead of you, and everybody talks about, at that time, I can always remember, well, the 42 Leafs and the 81 Islanders or whatever it was. What are you guys thinking in the room?
Well, I'll be honest with you. Once you get into the room, you don't really think about being down in the series. You're so programmed and pre-wired just to go about your routine, getting yourself ready for the game, and probably 90% of that, whatever team's left in the playoffs right now, you're playing with some kind of injury or ailment, so you're doing your treatment, you're getting ready. The only time you're really maybe thinking about it is between games. So when you go home, if you happen to, you're still talking to family members, you're still talking about, you have probably friends calling you, how you guys feeling about coming back in the series? That would be when you're thinking about it. But once you get to the rink, honestly, you do take that one game at a time mentality, because that's all you got to hang on to. So are the Leafs hearing it? I would say they're not listening to any social media. They're not listening to the radio. They're not reading the papers, because if you do, then those negative thoughts can creep in.
Okay, so you're just pretending it's just a game. Like, you're just playing one game.
Yeah, that's all. Any team that's in that situation, that's all you do. Like, I came back from a 3-0 deficit once. Mind you, is in the Swiss League, which is complete insanity what goes on over there. So, and I've seen teams. We saw it just recently. Was it who was the last team to do it, Wally? Was that the San Jose series the last time it happened? Was it San
3-0?
Jose? And yeah, I'm trying to remember the team it was. But hey, it's the way Florida's playing right now. It's going to be They're so stingy. But I'll tell you what, that last game, that's the best and most structured I've seen the Toronto Maple Leafs play. Usually they're trying to like toe drag, do little moves at the blue line. The last game was the first time I really thought they played real playoff hockey. The type of hockey you need to win in the playoffs. Can they do it for 3 more games? I wouldn't bet on it. But it's been done before, but I wouldn't bet on it.
I guess my question to you is, when does it set in that this isn't going to, like, you're not going to win this series? Is it just when you're shaking hands?
Yep.
It's got to be before that. You got it. Really? Like, I remember, but Alfie was asked, and I should have brought this up with Sly, because it was Sly who asked the question. In the New Jersey series, you guys are down 3-1. You're gone by then. Sorry. You're down 3-1. Yep. This is 03. Eastern Conference Final. And Alfie was asked, do you think you can come back? And he's like, probably not.
That's a good way to deflect too. Don't forget, you take off a little bit of pressure.
Yes.
It's a good way to deflect, because then it's like, well, what's the follow-up question to that? And honestly, when the door is shut and the media is out of the room and it's just players, everyone goes back to little routines, getting ready, taping your sticks, doing your stretching, and your mind, before the start of any game, especially at the pro level, you clear your mind. You're not thinking about other things like that. And that's the way your entire career goes. Every game. And if you were a guy that let things creep into your mind, then you wouldn't have made the NHL, because you would have failed along the way because you wouldn't have been mentally tough enough. That's how I was. And okay. I'm sure maybe there's a few guys that let it creep in, but if you do, then you probably wouldn't have made the pros in the first place.
All right, fair enough. I wondered if there was ever the doubt.
I would say, Wally, it probably creeps in if you're in an elimination game and your goalie lets in a couple stinkers, or you guys get down and then the bench gets down. I would say in an elimination game, but you look at the way that series has gone. That Toronto series has been pretty tight. Like most games have been pretty tight, especially the last one. So, they're still believing. I'll guarantee you, they're still believing.
Okay, fair enough. I love Fleetwood Mac. So, all right, we're going to be back Monday. Still working on whether or not we have a guest. We moved Mark Borowiecki, obviously, to maybe next week. I do have someone else lined up as well on Thursday. So we will be back with shows. But this is why we continue to do shows throughout the summer. There's always something to talk about when it comes to the Ottawa Senators, which is why I love that there's never a dull moment.
Always entertaining, Wally. See you Monday.
Thanks for stopping by, everybody. Appreciate the chat. It was fantastic today. Have a great weekend. Enjoy the golf, Yorkie.
Playing later.
No doubt. All right. Take care.
Coming in Hot is brought to you by Botano.ca. Please hit that like button and subscribe to our channel to never miss an episode.